Right, so today is Thursday, the 23rd of November, and yeah, and it's just gone 6 o'clock in the evening in the very wet country of Great Britain. It's not actually been too bad today, has it? It's
No,
normally
no.
really like miserable, but it's actually been quite nice today. And so we are now on air live and just waiting for a few people to join us. Um, and I mean, I know we're in different parts of the countries, but I've had sunshine here all day. It's been glorious. So for November, end of November day,
Yes.
must be that global warming. What do you
Yes.
reckon? Global warming is having a real impact in England.
Isn't it global boiling? It's the global
Yes,
boiling.
I think I'm experiencing global. That's what we should rename menopause for women. Global boiling. There you
Oh
go.
my
You've
God.
done it.
Oh my
I
God.
like that. Right, ladies, it's no longer called menopause, okay? We are global boiling. That's what we are. I'm here with Crypto Rich, and we're not just going to be speaking about crypto, but that's what you're known as. And I came across Richard, is it Richard? Yeah.
Rich.
Um, Rich. I came across Rich on someone sent me the Richard Vobes live you done, where you mentioned my name because you saw a video of the pedo suites in the supermarkets where I was ranting and screaming. Now, I came across that on myself on a video. I think it was the ladies in, I'm not sure who it was, must have been the ladies in Wales. And obviously, I wanted to go and see for myself if this was true. I was like, whoa, I need to check this out to see if it's true. And I couldn't believe it. And that's why I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. And that recording, shockingly, went quite far, which I'm really glad about because I've always said it's not about who gets there first, but it's about spreading as much awareness as possible. And then you picked it up and done the same thing.
Yep. Laura, I was really inspired and enraged by that video. I thought, who is this? Who
Mm.
is this? Who is this? I want to reach out to her. And eventually I found you, but there wasn't a way of contacting you through your YouTube channel that I could work out, right? And then
Ah,
I know Richard, I've been on his channel before. So I reached out to him and I said, look, can we squeeze this in? I know you're really busy because he does 2 videos a day, right? And he was so generous that he fitted me into his schedule. And we did this video, and I thought, well, I got to give a shout out to you and acknowledge you because you're the one that made me aware of it. So yes, and thank you for reaching out, and it's thank you for inviting me to be on your channel. And this
no,
will
it's
also
my
be on my
pleasure.
channel at some point.
Yep.
But I really appreciate it. Thank you.
It's fine. And what I'll do at the end is I'll put the links on here to your channel so people can contact you and come and sort of follow you and etc. So what was your story? Because it was through you that I learned a few legislations. So you
Yes,
went out and checked it for yourself and managed to have a win.
yes, a temporary win because I went there a couple of weeks later. Before I go into that, I just want to say to people that they can find me on bit.ly/CryptoRichOdyssey and bit.ly/CryptoRich3Speak, which are censorship resistant vlogging platforms. I'm also on YouTube, but I get shadow banned there. And I'm also on
Mm.
Twitter at CryptoRichYT. Okay, so I saw your video and I went to a local Sainsbury's and I saw and I spoke to the manager. And for people who don't know, what I said to the manager is the 1989 Children's Act says, you've got to protect children from risk of significant harm. So it's not just significant harm, but risk of significant harm. Like it wouldn't do if someone was going to have Jimmy Savile babysit their kid that evening. No. That's risk. That's enough risk, right? And then also the Sexual Offences Act 2003. And I didn't
Yep.
have the specifics, and he agreed to take them off. And then I actually work as a child protection social worker, and that's what I'm qualified as. And I contacted a few social worker friends of mine, including a police officer, a former police officer who's now a social worker, and he sent me a screenshot Section 10 of the Sexual Offences Act, which makes it a criminal offence to entice or induce or in any way encourage a child under the age of 16 to engage in sexual activity. So then a couple of weeks later, I went back to that same Sainsbury's, and there they were, the sweets again. And I haven't done a video about this. This is the first time I'm talking about it on video. And this time I was like, okay, I'm going to make more of a scene because I'm not shy. And I wasn't shouting. I was just speaking with an intention to be heard. So I walked up to this is a Friday evening. I walked up to where the tills were and I said, excuse me, can I speak to the manager, please? Look at these sweets. Look at what it says. Sex and sweets go together. Isn't that disgusting? I was saying to and nobody in particular, and a couple of guys walking past. Yeah, oh, that's it. That is disgusting. I said, yeah, it is, isn't it? And then one of the staff called the manager over. The manager came over, and I said, look, have you seen these? Sex education. There's condoms on there, and look what it says on the back. And this is in the children's sweet section. You know, can you remove them, please? And he said, no, I can't remove them. And I said, well, you can. And he said, no, you've got to. This is if you're unhappy with them, you've got to contact head office. And I said, well, fair enough, but and I showed him the screenshot. Section 10 of the Sexual Offences Act 2003 says it's an offence to entice children to engage in sexual activity, and you could be personally liable because you got them in display. And he goes, no, I'm not going to be personally liable. I make the decisions. You know, I follow what head office says. And I said, well, you now know the law. I've told you. And you can't just say you're following orders. That's no defense. And he goes, well, look, it's still not down to me to remove them. You got to contact head office. And then I said to him, I said, have you got kids? He said, no. I said, what about nieces and nephews? He goes, no. And then he said, I'm an only child as well. I mean, credit to him, right? Credit to him. And I said, look at the stuff on the back. It shouldn't be for kids. You should maybe put them up with the dark chocolate.
Yeah, where nobody goes.
But with kids and stuff. And he said, well, you got to contact head office. I said, no, I don't. I said, you have the power to remove goods if they're damaged or if a customer makes a complaint. I am making a complaint. He goes, all right, I'll remove them.
Oh, fantastic.
So I haven't been back there. They may just put them back on. Some other manager comes in, puts them back on, right?
No.
Think of enough people make enough noise.
Yeah, exactly. I wrote your words down, and as soon as I heard you say that, I was like, oh, this is brilliant. So legislation 1989 Children's Act. Children have to be protected from exposure to risk or significant harm. And then the Sexual Offences Act 2003 Section 10. It's a criminal offence to entice or induce or deceive children to engage in sexual activities. They can be personally liable because this is classed as grooming.
Yeah, that's an anti-grooming legislation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then can I just say, Laura, about this, right? Because I think it's relevant. So, when we're looking at the whole issue of paedophilia, the whole discourse of paedophilia, I think there are people can be in four groups, right? So one is they're the paedophiles themselves, and they're incredibly devious and manipulative. They have to be to get away with what they do, right? The other is those that enable the paedophilia. That's the third group. They enable the paedophilia. Like say Ghislaine Maxwell, maybe she was a paedophile herself, but she enabled Epstein. Then there's the other group, which are those that are unwilling to accept or consider or even look at that it goes on because it's too upsetting, or they think, no, Jimmy Savile was such a nice guy and I liked his Sunday lunchtime show, which I did, by the way. I used to listen to that, right?
Yeah.
And then the other group are those that call out the pedophiles.
Yeah.
And in the face of everything else, and the pedophiles are going to be incredibly manipulative because they don't just groom the child, they groom people around the child, like Jimmy Savile did. He groomed loads and loads of people to believe him, that he was just a nice guy, you know, fixing things for people and doing charity work while he was doing God knows what with people in that hospital. So because then they have a defense. Oh, you can't say that about Jimmy Savile. He does such good charity work. So there you go. So
yeah, it's true, and you're right. They are very, very clever. In fact, as much as I can't stand the celebrity here, obviously for many, many reasons, But Oprah Winfrey made a speech on one of her shows once. I just caught a clip of it, and she said a good groomer will make it so that the child enjoys it. And that's the danger of it. That is the actual danger, is when a child becomes it becomes like they become accustomed to it and they start to enjoy it, and that's when you have a groomers that are really good at it. And so then it's like a game, it's like something that, you know, they fall into the prey of not realizing that they're being um abused.
Yeah,
um
I'm not sure if I agree with that interpretation, but pedophiles have to be incredibly, incredibly
mm,
devious and clever and secretive, and then they, gather other pedophiles around them because non-pedophiles have no interest in pedophiles, are repulsed by them, and are a threat to the
mm,
pedophile. And then pedophiles, well, what are they going to do with a non-pedophile? This person can't get me, what I
yeah.
want, and this
mm,
person is a risk to me. So they'll hang out with other pedophiles. And I do know that our king was a very, very good friend of Jimmy Savile,
mm,
and would have known.
yeah.
I knew about Jimmy Savile when I was 19, back in 19,
Yeah.
I think it was 1984 or no, 1982 or 1983. I was told by the director of a children's charity that he was a known paedophile, very notorious,
Yeah.
well connected. Special branch would have known, MI5 would have known.
Yeah, of course. About when I was doing a health and social care course at college a few years back. I'd done a whole year of health and social care and realised I wanted nothing to do with it. It's funny that I was like, nope, nothing. But I wanted to actually get into social services, believe it or not. And
Right.
we had a social service lady come in, and she said that the thing about the paedophiles and this sort of um, subject is that if social services are called to an emergency and there is a child being groomed by a paedophile or a child being beaten, that child will come first because it's a more immediate threat than the fact that they have a child living with a paedophile. And she explained that the problem is that it's very hard to prove abuse when a child is being looked after and loved. Um, and so it's a very difficult thing to win in any court, because you've got to prove evidence above and beyond reasonable doubt that they are being abused in some
Mm.
way, shape, or form. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, sexual abuse is incredibly hard to find evidence for because of the nature, because it happens in the shadows, because there aren't necessarily physical signs, and then also because of the people that are protecting them. I mean, one of the
Mm,
things I want to say is about the whole conversation about the grooming gangs, the Pakistani grooming gangs. What is it, in Blackpool or somewhere in northern England?
mm,
And it's used by organizations like the BNP to stoke hatred against Muslims and Pakistanis. And by the way, I'm Muslim and I'm Pakistani, and I'm a child protection social worker. And I've been thinking about, well, what happens on the ground? I'm speculating what happens on the ground that it persists. Because if I'm a social worker and I come across this, well, I
mm.
will, something like this, sexual abuse or whatever. I will share that information with my manager, like I do with all the cases that I'm working on, and I get feedback and ideas on what to do and where to take it. And then my manager, if it's a major thing, will feed it back to his or her manager. And if it's a big thing, it'll go all the way up the chain. And then it could go all the way up to the chain, if it's a really big deal, up to the children's minister, or somewhere in the Home Office or the Department of Justice. And then somebody up there who's compromised in some way
Yeah,
or acting for somebody else, knowingly or unknowingly, passes the message down, and they might say, leave this alone. Interpol are investigating, MI5 are investigating, leave alone, leave alone, leave alone. So it comes all the way down to the frontline social worker who's got this instruction, leave this alone, because Interpol or MI5 or big police investigation, they don't want you to ruin it. Well, that seems plausible and sensible. So it passes. And then the media produced this nonsense story that the police were afraid to act because they were afraid of being accused of being racist or something, or social workers. It's nonsense. It's a complete red herring. So that's my speculation on it, and I do know from a very reliable personal contact who's worked in government circles, and I won't say which government. It's not the UK, but I imagine it goes on. That how intelligence agencies will get compromising material on a politician or a judge,
Yes.
or a CEO, and then they're owned. They're
Yes,
owned.
absolutely. I think most of them up there are owned.
Yeah, because people can own, an MP can own up to being gay, they can own up to being an alcoholic, they can own up to being a gambler, they can own up to being unfaithful. Nobody can own up to that they've had sex with a child. That's
Yeah.
it. They're
Yeah.
owned.
Mm. Yeah.
And I
Absolutely
wouldn't put
right.
it
And in
past
fact, you won't put it
Mossad or
past.
I wouldn't put it past Mossad or RAW or ISI or the CIA
Yeah.
or MI6 or MI5 or any of these spy agencies, the FSB, I think the Russian one or whatever, to gun camera a child.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But you're right. In fact, I think it was John Wedger done a documentary, didn't he? Out of the Shadows UK. Have you ever seen that?
No, no, no. Do you
And
know, Laura? Sorry, I'm so sorry. Forgive me for interrupting. I actually find that those kinds of films and documentaries unpalatable. I can't like the
mm,
stuff in the newspapers when I read about some child being killed. I can't.
yeah, yeah.
And I work in the
Um,
field.
yeah, I absolutely get that. This wasn't a mainstream TV. This was one of
Right.
those. It would never have been shown. So you'd have to go to one of the
Odyssey or
uncensored
BitTube.
sites.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was a policeman, and he exposed how high up in Parliament paedophilia goes. So
Right.
it was very, very interesting, and it's shocking. And down to the
What's-
fact, I think even Maggie Thatcher knew about many of her cabinet members
Yeah. Well,
being involved. Mm.
Ted Heath was a paedophile. Lord Mountbatten was a paedophile. Um, there was an interview David Icke did recently, which is on YouTube. I don't forget with who, but in that interview he said that Maggie Thatcher's father was a paedophile.
Oh,
So what
great.
was the name? What was the name of that film again?
Oh, it's I can send it to you at the end if you like. It's called
Say
Out
the
of the
name anyway.
Shadows UK. Out of
Out
the
of the Shadows
Shadows
UK.
UK.
Okay.
It's yeah, it was good. It was definitely something there was a lot to it. I think he done a good thing, but again, he exposed how he was told not to look into these things. That his job was at risk if he carried on down this line. Um, but the other thing I want to say is I've had an absolute, I mean, I cannot tell you how much stick and abuse. I mean, guys, if you want to go and have a look at my TikTok video and the comments, I know you don't have TikTok, but the comments on that little video of people absolutely abusing me, calling me a Karen, calling me this, calling. They're only sweets. They're not for adults. It's not aimed at adults, and they're on the top shelf. What is wrong with you? So aren't adults allowed sweets? Children can't read. What was the other one? And in fact, just that store had them on the top shelf, but there was other stores that weren't on the top shelf. They were on the bottom or the middle. Children can't read, they can't reach, and it's to do with sex education, and it's not aimed at children. So, um, what do you think of that? I can give you my opinion, but
I think you and I would both agree. So my question is, so why are they designed in child-friendly packaging? Why are they on the second? I found them on the lower shelves. Even if you're in the top shelf, a parent could unknowingly, unwittingly, a 16-year-old could buy them, pass them on to a younger child. 9-year-olds can read. I said to the manager the second time around, I said, what if this 9-year-old buys these sweets because she likes this brand or whatever, and this girl's already been sexually abused? This is going to further traumatize her. So 9-year-olds can read. And then why on earth would anybody want a child to suck on a sweet that's shaped like a condom, like a child under 16? What is the logic in that? Sure, you
mm,
want, some 16, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old. I mean, I don't really want to suck on a sweet that's like a condom, right?
no,
People want to,
it doesn't appeal to me.
If adults want to do that, well, knock themselves off. We have to protect our children. So then put them in the adult section next to the dark chocolate. Don't have them in child-friendly packaging, because the other thing that those sweets do is it draws children's attention, prepubescent children's attention, to that TV series. Oh,
And have you seen it?
no, I don't watch TV. I waste enough of my
Well,
life.
I can't even. I wrote it down somewhere. I watched a trailer. If you go to YouTube and just watch the trailers, right?
Yeah.
It is shocking, shocking. Now, let me ask you something. I don't know if you guys
So
can
before you go
remember.
on, one more response to the question, what would I
Yeah,
say?
yeah.
Well, I go back to these 4 groups of people. There are those that are the pedophiles and carry this out. There are those that enable it. There are those that ignore or pretend or can't confront it. And that there are those call it out. We get to say which group we fall in. And then, well, which group are you going to be? You're going to enable it? Is that what you're going to be? Or you're just going to ignore it? Or you're going to ally yourself?
Exactly.
If you're not going to call it out, you're going to ally yourself with those that do call it out.
Mm.
Or perhaps you might be one of these, because nobody's going to admit to this one.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. But people can't see the bigger picture. They don't realize that this is a target on our children's innocence. And it's and it's dangerous. It's absolutely
It's
dangerous.
worse than that. It's not a target on our children's innocence. It is that. It's an assault on family. It's an assault on culture. It's an assault on society. It's an assault on religion and faith. Whether people have an active religion or not, or they're very liberal or atheist or agnostic, pretty much everybody has some sort of moral code. And it's an assault on that. Those children who are, for whatever reason, sexualized by the stuff going on in schools, they go home, they visit that play upon their younger brother or sister or the kid next door, and now you have sexual abuse in that household where it wasn't an issue. It fractures those families. Those children grow up to become adults who are dopamine addicts and can be easily controlled and manipulated, unable to hold down relationships, all sorts of problems like drug use and promiscuity and
Yep.
dysfunctional relationships and poor academic performance. It does not make for a healthy society, which is why there's a pretty much universal prohibition against child sexual abuse.
Yeah. And did you notice as well the children that when you have a child that can't quite, at 8-year-old children can read, okay, even 5-year-old children can read. If they read the packet, and or maybe their older siblings will read it to him. Sex and sweets go hand in hand, and then it goes on to explain how I don't have it in front of me now, but
It's horrible.
basically, right, how they are both amazing. So sex and sweets. So now, if you're
They
a
both make you
child
feel good.
and make you feel good. So now, if you're a child and you can't even contemplate sex, but you understand how amazing a sweet is, isn't that then going to make you curious?
Well, what it does, it normalizes sex as part of normal children's discourse.
Yep.
That's what it does. It's the thin end of the wedge. There's no, wait a minute, this child doesn't have the emotional capacity, let alone the physical paraphernalia to engage in something like that.
Mm. And it promotes promiscuity. It even had a condom saying "Be curious," like it's really good to. Did you see that? Yeah, I
It's
know,
just
right?
reminded, it's like,
Yeah. So the show, I just want to give you one line from the show. It's about this boy who's like, high school, 16 or whatever, 18, I don't know. He goes to this high school and he's odd. He is odd because he hasn't kissed a girl until he was 16, so that makes him odd. He struggles to, it's really crude. I'm not even going to go there. But his mum she's a sex therapist. And she sat down, and I just couldn't believe this. Maybe I'm just odd. Maybe it's me. But she sat next to her son, who's like 16, and she said, I've noticed, now I can't get my words 100% right because it was a little while back. So if anyone can remember, I've noticed you've been trying to masturbate lately. Right? Now, what
mother would
parent
say that?
would say that? Exactly. Is it just me? Do you want to talk about it? She said. Can anyone here?
But what
I mean,
teenager, what healthy, wholesome teenager wants to talk about that with their own parents? You and I know, I think you'd agree with me, Laura. I don't care how many brothers or sisters you have.
no,
Our parents never had sex, as far as we're concerned.
no,
Never did.
no, you would not.
No. No matter how happily married they were, we know they never had sex. Other parents did.
Exactly.
My friend's parents had sex. It's obvious. Look, there's my mate.
Yeah.
Right? They made him. But my parents never had sex.
It's true. It's absolutely true. But yeah, and that's the show carries on, and it's all promoting promiscuity. That sex is just amazing, and that you should send. The other thing it promotes is sending, and this is something that I want to run by you. It's sending naked pictures of yourself, of your parts. It promotes that.
Which is
Now, here's
that's a criminal offense. That is a criminal offense to send obscene literature like that, obscene images across the internet by phone and stuff. I've actually worked with kids as a social worker who've been grilled by the police about this and warned by the police, you cannot do that. It's a criminal
mm,
offense. So then this program is promoting, not only promoting
yeah,
sexuality. Okay, they're over 16, but now through these suites, these 9-year-olds are going to discover this program and turn on Netflix.
mm,
There it is, right?
mm,
Mommy and daddy are out shopping because they, of course, they never have sex, right?
yep,
So they're going to get exposed to this whole conversation, and then it's promoting this illegal activity. But
mm,
the other thing, Laura, is it's done without any context,
mm,
of relationships,
yep. No morals, no
stability, like
dignity.
no moral code. Whether
Mm,
and I don't mean religion, but like I said
mm,
earlier, people who aren't necessarily religious have a moral code, unless
yep,
they're psychopaths.
yeah. Now let me ask you, where would the biggest library of all these pictures be?
On the
Like
internet.
Google Cloud,
Yeah.
like the internet. So there you go. Now you've got Pedo City up top storing all these pictures of people sending pictures of their especially young people, because this show promotes it. So you can see where this is going.
Yeah, but then what it does, you send some 16-year-old sends that image to a 15-year-old that they fancy. The 15-year-old hasn't watched this program, doesn't know anything about it, and now the
Mm,
15-year-old has got these sexual images on their phone,
yep.
uninvited.
Mm,
And then the young people, they don't have the compass mentis, the capacity to think about the ramifications of this. And
no.
it's but they've been told by the TV that it's okay.
Mm. If you get a chance, do Google and watch just the trailers on YouTube. Sorry, to the series 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you'll be shocked. Just as the trailer goes, I'm sure you'll be able to read
Oh,
between the lines as I did. But that is what is going on, and that's what these suites are promoting. They are promoting, um, yeah, chaos. But I used your legislation, which was
mhm.
amazing. And I called a lady went into the Asda in Strood, Kent, and they were still on the shelf. She didn't have the time to deal with it. So I actually called the manager, spoke to the manager in Asda in Strood. So if anyone's from Strood, don't remember his name now. Um, and I spoke to him, said you've got these sweets, and he actually went and got a pack. And I spoke to him look about what's on the back, and he was absolutely shocked. He had no idea
Mm.
about these sweets. And then I read out the legislation and I explained the severity of these, and he said, I'm taking them all down now. He said, I don't agree with this, it's disgusting, I don't want to promote this. And he was very, very good, and I said, I'm so glad we are of similar opinion, and we didn't need to debate this, because there's no debating this. There is no debating this.
No, no.
So
I
I wanted to thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're absolutely welcome, and thank you, Laura, and thank you for spreading the word. And for anybody who's watching, go check out your local supermarket in the UK and Ireland or wherever they might be, and check out and go to the website and maybe ring them up and say, look, Sexual Offences Act, Section 10, you cannot groom children. It's a criminal offence.
Mm. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. So we'll move on from that one because I want to about your job though. How do you? What's it like on the other side? How is your job? It must be quite
Do you know,
difficult.
it is, and I suppose I really love it. I absolutely really, really love it. I'm really, really satisfied and settled in what I do. You know, I do the rough end. I'm on the front line. I'm out there visiting families. I get the referrals, I check it out, and I look at, okay, do we need to put them on a child protection plan? And if need be, I will remove children. And
Mm,
sometimes that process takes ages as I gather evidence to go to court and prove to the judge and get the judge on my side. And other times, you know, I have in one instance removed asked the police to come and remove the children straight away because the place was so they was just so
mm,
unsafe, and the police agreed with me. And in that instance the kids went to stay with their grandmother. We always try and keep children within the family. um, there's other areas of social work, like working with children with learning disabilities or adults or with disabilities or elderly or fostering or looked after children. Oh, I can't be doing that. It's not me.
no,
Not me. No,
but
no, no.
no, I don't. But you make a good difference
Thank you.
to these children. So that's the important part. And um, it is a very difficult sort of job, isn't it? To
S Thank you. It is, Laura. Forgive me for interrupting you again, right? Because
No, it's fine.
it it fits my personality or how I am or whatever, and also my commitment. I'm working for, or I'm working to protect the most distressed, disadvantaged demographic of all.
Mm,
Children from chaotic, distressed, abusive households.
yep.
Children, they don't have any economic power, they don't have any political power, they have no voice. And they're with parents who, for whatever reason, because of their own tragedies usually, aren't able to care for these children as you know, as these children need to be cared for. So for me, it's consistent with, I suppose, what shapes my politics. I'm up for a world where human beings honor human beings, where
Mm,
children honor their parents and parents honor their children, and I honor you and you honor me, and this one honors that one. You know, world where our relationships are bound by honoring each other. So it's an expression of that for me.
I like that. I do. It's a sad existence that a lot of these families, through no fault of their own, are destroying their next generation.
Mhm.
Um, do you provide any help for the families to better themselves?
Yeah, yeah, always, 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 wherever possible, we try and work with the parents. I mean, the law says that the 1989 Children's Act is one of the best pieces of legislation, not just in children welfare, but in any sector of law throughout the world. It's an
Mm,
incredible piece of legislation. Um, Despite how the mainstream media, you know, the Daily Mail and others talk about social workers and what happened, they removed my kids, and I could say something about that in a moment. But we try and keep the children with their parents. So, you know, one of the most common things that I deal with is domestic abuse, which
mm,
is usually where the father beats up on the mother.
mm,
Great with the kids, but beats up on the mother. And the mother might say, well, you know, he only ever does it when the kids are asleep. Well, no, that still messes up the kids. Beating up
mm,
on the mother, sometimes the father, is as harmful as directly abusing the child.
mm.
And people don't get that. Even when the kids are asleep, the brain picks it all up. It messes up their growth, their hormones, their brain development, everything. And
Yep.
they grow up to be kids who are like directly abuse themselves. And the girls often grow up to become women who are abused. And the boys grow
Mm,
up to become men who abuse. Not necessarily, but you know, it's just their patterns that they've
yep.
learned.
Mm,
Then we'll offer the men a course in honoring women. No, when you get pissed off, you don't thump them.
yep.
You
Yep.
let them have a job, you let them have their own finances, you don't try and control them and be so jealous and all of that, right? And for the
Mm,
women, don't put up with a guy who's not gonna honor you.
mm,
You deserve better. And these are the signs to look out for. And one sign for any women watching or whatever, right? You go out on a date, you meet a guy, and if in the very early on in the relationship, he says something like, "Oh, no, 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 I don't believe in hitting women." Why would you say that? Why would anybody say that?
Mm,
You know,
mm.
like, do you know, Laura, I don't believe in pulling the wings off flies. Oh, great, Rich. Thanks for telling me that.
Yeah, yeah. It's sort of a giveaway that there could be a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they move in very, very quickly. Like, you're the one for me, blah, blah, blah. You're the one for me. Let's be together. And then they isolate the women from the rest of the family. They want to move together, get them pregnant.
Mm.
That's it. Owned. Watch out.
So there's a
And
lot of
sorry, Laura, a plug,
yeah,
right? Women's Aid. Women's Aid do incredible work. So if anybody in
right.
watching this is in that sort of situation or knows somebody who is, call Women's Aid. Free phone number. Incredible, incredible work. Shout out to them.
Excellent. Yeah, I
They
mean,
should.
I was volunteering for a charity, sorry, called Satida, which work with domestic abuse women. But at the moment, social services all across the board has got a very bad reputation. So there are genuine people, I believe, like yourself, that are doing a good job. But there's a real stigma around social services that they just want to take children away from the parents. They're very um, quick to do that. So what would you say on that?
Well, my counter to that is you only ever hear one side.
Mm,
See, if a local authority, if social workers in a particular local authority remove a child from a family, and then those parents have the child removed, they go to the press and they say this, they give their version of events. The local authority is never going to give its own version of events. It's just not,
right.
because they've got to protect that child's confidentiality. They just don't. So all people ever hear is one side. I
Mm,
know from where I have sufficient evidence that I'm like, oh my God, oh my God. You know, I'll give you an example. Get a referral from a GP. GP gets called to this house. In this house is a 21-year-old, the mother, a 15-year-old and a 14-year-old. The 21-year-old is in college. The 15-year-old and the 14-year-old were barricaded in a room. And they weren't in school. Mum said she was home educating them. And then so the GP passes it on to social services, and I'm the social worker, and I go and visit the mum. I go to the house, and I'm really straight with people about their rights. And so, look, and she refuses to let me in. Fine. She doesn't have to let me in. I have no right to go in, right? But I keep going. I keep going. I keep going. And then one of the things she brings the children to the door. I see them at the door, and there is something odd. There
mm,
is something not right. I can't articulate it. I don't know what it is, but I have this uneasy feeling. Something is really off here. They're clean, well presented. But I didn't have evidence to remove them. I
mm,
can't just go in there. I could call the police and the police look at them and say, well, there's nothing going on. So I have to gather the evidence. It's not that easy. And then what happens is we get the boy into college. I mean, the 14-year-old and the 15-year-old didn't know how to cross the road. They didn't know where the library was. I
right.
asked the mum one day, I said, look, at the doorstep, because she's still not letting me in, show me some books. Show me some books they're reading. I don't care. The Bible, the Atlas, encyclopedia, show me a book. The 15-year-old brought down a Mr. Gum book, a book that I read to
Mm,
my son when he was 6.
mm,
Okay, this 15-year-old is not getting what he needs to be a fully functioning, healthy, wholesome 15-year-old.
mm,
Now, the mum had, I think, had mental health problems, and we get the boy into college, but then mental health problems aren't obvious. She's managed to contain everything. Um, and then one day the boy calls me
mm,
from a mobile phone. We got him a mobile phone. He calls me and he says, I want to get out. So then he's 15. I check with my manager and I start meeting with him. He's old enough for me to meet with him on his own at college. And I
mhm,
start getting more information, more information. I then um, have a meeting with my manager and the legal department of the council. And we say, okay, we're going to go ahead with this. I let the mother know that we're going to court to get a court order to remove her children.
mm,
She gets legal aid.
right.
Because she's not working. She gets legal aid. She gets a solicitor to fight her corner, as she should have in case I'm making a mistake, right?
Yeah.
Or overstepping my powers. So there's the local authority and me saying, I've got all this evidence, all this evidence, all this evidence. There's her with her solicitor saying, no, 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 I refute this, refute this, refute this. It gets submitted to court. And then the court also enlists an independent social worker from the Department of Justice, not connected to the local authority, not connected to me, not connected to the parents. And they give a third, they look at the stuff that I've got, they look at the stuff that the mother has got. So you now got three parties, three different perspectives, all presenting their evidence. And then it goes to court. And sometimes the judge can say, okay, I want this information, I want that information, this is missing, do a parenting assessment, do drug and alcohol tests, mum's mental health assessment, all this stuff, right? And then if successful, and I was in this instance, I got a court order to remove children. That's what it takes. It's not like I can just go in and snatch them. Well, I can if there's imminent risk.
Yeah.
But even then, I can only remove them for a short period, and I have to go to court, and the parents get a solicitor, and then the guardian, the independent social worker, also comes in, and there's this process. Parents get their day in court.
It's heartbreaking, isn't it?
It's, it is heartbreaking. I hate removing children. I don't like doing
But
it.
sometimes it does have to be done,
It needs to
obviously.
be done. It needs to be done. There was one where I did it is like straight away. I get a phone call from a father on oh no, sorry, from a head teacher on a Thursday afternoon. He says to me, "There's two boys. I think they were 6 and 8 years old. They come to school one day out of 3. It's been like this for the year. When they come in, they're grubby, they're hungry. We've phoned the mum, we've written letters to the mum, we've been round to the mum's house. We get no response, no response, no response. Right? I'm really, really worried about them." I said, "Okay, are they in school today?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, look, I'll call you at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning." So this Friday morning, I call the school at 9 o'clock. I said, "Are the boys in?" The head teacher says, "No." I said, "All right, I'm going to go around to where they live." And it was in a block of flats. And I had a newly qualified social worker, her first week in the job. Oh, this was a baptism by fire for this newly qualified social worker. So I think they're on their flat was on the second floor and stuff, right? And we can't get past. There's a door that leads to the balcony that leads to a front door, so can't get in, can't get past that. She's not answering the door, she's not answering the phone. So then I call the police, and I asked the police to come and do a welfare check. The police turn up, they manage to get a ladder from some builders nearby. The police go up the balcony and they knock on the front door, and the mum opens the door. And then also the police let me through and my colleague through, and we're talking to the mum. And what I can see through the doorway is she's barefoot and there's liquid on the floor, and the hallway looks really, really dirty. And she brings the kids to the door and they look grubby. And we find out, she's got her grandmother lives a couple of miles away. She's got a couple of sisters living a couple of miles away. And then we say to her that we have to go in and see the flat. We have to go in because the little bit we can see is filthy. And what I find, they've got a dog, a Staffordshire or Bull Terrier or something. And what I find out later, that dog hadn't left the flat for a year.
Oh.
And then I go into the kitchen. There's just household detritus and rubbish all over the kitchen floor. I find out later the kitchen hadn't been cleaned for a year. There's the washing machine door won't open. There's piles of clothing. It's just in a filthy state. The lounge is the same. Then the fridge freezer in the lounge is big and it's full of fresh food, which I find really odd. I go into the mum's bedroom, and I'll explain that. I go into the mum's bedroom and the two kids were in there. This is the room that they used. It's fairly tidy. It smells of pee and sweat. Mum was on Facebook doing stuff, right? Chatting to mates or whatever. And then there's this other room and the door's locked. The door won't open. The mum says, the door doesn't work. We can't go in there. And I said, we can't leave it. We can't leave it. We have to know what's behind the door. So I asked the police to break the door down. They break the door down, and it was the kids' bedroom, and there was nothing. It was tidy because they hadn't used it for months because the door had broken and the lock had broken. And they couldn't open it. And then the mum says, "I hope you're not taking my kids." And I say to her, "They're not staying here. They're not staying here. So we're going to take them to you. We can take them to your aunts or their grandmothers, but they're not staying here." So we call her grandmother, we call the kid's grandmother, we call the aunt, they say they'll come over. I walk across and take the boys to school, which is about 5 minutes walk away. I hand them over to the head teacher and I say, "Okay, they haven't eaten. Give them some food. And then, take care of them." And the grandmother will come and pick them up at the end of the school day. Head teacher goes and do that. I go back to the flat, and the mum and the grandmother have turned up, and the two police officers are there, and my colleague is there, the newly qualified social worker, and they've left the flat, and they've left the mum in the flat, and they're outside. And I said, "What are you doing? What's going on?" And they said, "Well, we've got the boys. They're safe. They're going to go with the grandmother. This is the grandmother." I said, "We're not. No, no, no. We've got to go in. We've just taken this mum's kids. We've got to check that she's okay." So then I asked the police to break in again. They break in again, and we find the mum. She'd swallowed some tablets. She was
Oh my goodness.
on the bed, comatose. And then, okay, so I called an ambulance and wait for the ambulance. They take the mum to the hospital. She's in hospital for a couple of weeks. The police take the dog to Battersea Dogs Home.
Mm.
And then after school, me and my colleague go to the grandmother's flat to make sure that the kids are going to be okay there. We've got to check that place out. And it
Mm.
looks fine. And I speak to the aunts and they seem fine. And what it was, this mum was just depressed. And the grandmother would, reach out to her. She wouldn't answer her, respond to her own mother's calls or anything. And the grandmother would leave food outside the flat and then go away. That's how come there was fresh food in the fridge and in the freezer. And they just didn't know that, for whatever reason, she didn't contact social services. And my poor
So,
colleague at the end of the day, he's like, "Oh my God, oh my God."
oh God, yeah. So
So
did she eventually then get the help she needed?
yeah,
Yeah,
so she got the mental health support. We got in touch with the dad. The aunts came and cleared up the flat and everything. And I think eventually the boys stayed with their grandmother. We always try and keep children with their families. And the boys went back. They stayed with their
yeah,
families,
yeah.
which is the best thing for them. If
Oh,
anything ever happened to me, or my wife, when my kids were younger or whatever, I'd want them to go to my wife's sister or my brother.
yeah, yeah.
Social services will, if there's no family in the UK, they will go and place children with family abroad if need be.
Mm,
Much, much rather that.
that's good.
Yeah.
Let's move away from this topic because in a minute I'm going to be in tears.
Laura, it is a labor of love. I made a difference in those instances. I made a difference to both those kids. Both. I
yeah,
really,
and you helped the mum get back on her feet and maybe
yeah,
and got her the help she needed.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it's truly heartbreaking, isn't it? The amount of people um, that are suffering in their lives. I had to go to the food bank to help someone last month, and they said that it was June, no, July. I can't remember the 2 months. June and July were the two worst months. Like they had literally the worst months ever on record. So there's a lot of suffering, a lot of suffering. Um,
And
so
it's going to increase because the government,
yeah,
the WEF owned government, are out to impoverish us all, so that we
and
own
look at
nothing.
the prices of
We have
things. I was just saying that today. I'm struggling with the prices of food and everything's just crazy. But then, what you've homeschooled your children though, haven't you?
My 16-year-old and my 19-year-old have never been to school. They've been home educated, and the philosophy that we followed is unschooling, which is they just played. They just played and played and played and played. And as they got older, they asked for, or we offered them, formal instruction. They said sure, because they were just. I mean, my son's 19 now. Had got three A levels because he decided to go to college. I tried to discourage him, but hey ho, I
Mm,
failed in that endeavor. And this is after a childhood of play. I'm so envious of their childhood.
yeah.
About in the forest, in parks, sand pits, skateboarding, ice skating, horse riding, because he'd work in the stables a weekend so he could get free horse rides and stuff,
Mm,
hanging out with his mates, Lego,
mm.
card games, Magic the Gathering for days and days and days with his home educated mates. Every day was a school holiday for him.
So how did you teach him maths and English, or did you have like a basic instruction? So when did they learn to sort of read and write then,
They
and
learnt
numbers
they learnt naturally, or they
naturally?
asked, or they are. My son learnt mathematics by playing Monopoly. You know, they would
Mm.
do Lego and they'd count their Lego pieces or whatever. Or if they're sharing things out as part of some other play, they'd count it out. We always read to them at night. It was just delicious. I refused to read TV tie-ins or Disney versions. I said, "You
Mm.
want the
Yeah.
Jungle Book? I will read you the original. I'm not reading that Disney rubbish."
Excellent.
Right. And so by the time he was 7 or something, I'd read Jungle Book to him twice. I mean, the Rudyard Kipling novel is wonderful. It is so wonderful. It's so well read. And the Disney book is just, it's like, oh, it's just disgusting, like cardboard.
Mm.
And when he was 8, he said, "Look, I'm ready to learn how to read. I want to learn how to read." So my wife said to him, "Well, ring up your mum's friend, your dad's friend who's a teacher." So he goes, "Okay." He rang up my friend, "So I want to learn how to read." And the teacher said, "Okay, well, make a timetable, practice with your parents. Choose a book you love." He chose Rudyard Kipling's original Jungle Book to
That's,
learn to read.
I think we have a troll um, on our site. I can't find him, guys. There he is. I've got to block someone.
Okay,
Sorry.
no problem. But it took 15 minutes, on average, 15 minutes a day over 3 weeks.
Mm.
And then he was on his own. He was off. I never had to give him another lesson. So 3 weeks, 15 minutes a day was all it took. And he chose Rudyard Kipling's Jungle Book because he loved that book. That's all it
That's
took.
amazing.
So
Mm.
what are kids doing in school? How much of the school day is a waste of time because kids are messing about? Or I remember, being completely bored by botany. I have no
Oh
interest
yeah.
in botany.
Mm.
Completely bored. But it was part of the biology curriculum. I like the animal stuff. I didn't want to do this stuff. No interest in physics and chemistry. Why do I have to sit here
Mm.
bored out of my brains?
So it's
So
natural. My son's at home. He's 14, nearly 15. It's hard work because I can't I can't afford to an everyday holiday, to do things. But I teach him to sort of think outside the box. We learn life skills. He gets involved with um, bits and pieces that we do, shopping and
yeah,
the everyday stuff. And he does want to go to college when he's 16. And I said, well, that's fine because by then I'm hoping that he will just get a job and work from there. But by the time he's 16, he's kind of bypassed those very impressionable, vulnerable
mm,
stages of peer pressure, and he's more in control of being more assertive and out of that
yeah.
indoctrinating stage. So when he comes in at a later age, he'd be more awake, and college is different anyway.
It is different. And
Um,
my son was very bored by college because having had this very personalized education, which he could design and mold, and a lot of it was through enjoyment, things that he enjoyed. I'd walk into his room. Laura, can you get how shocking this is? What a terrible way for a 15-year-old to behave. I'd walk into his room and he's on YouTube, bloody YouTube, watching a documentary about 15th century Mali. This isn't, I did not expect this from you. But he was interested in it and it wasn't work. And then,
yeah,
similar because he's watching programs about history of Indonesia.
yeah, yeah,
So there's enjoyment there. He's learning what he
yeah.
loves, right?
And
So
is your wife working? Is she at home or is she working? Did she?
she works. What we've had to do, the challenge is we've been a single income family because
Right, yeah.
when the kids were younger, one of us always had to be at home. I wasn't going
Mm,
to give them away, but we did connect with other local home ed families, which I think is a really useful thing to do because, and then who we connected with really when they were young are the parents that we got on with.
mm.
And then we do care exchange. Look, I'll look after your two this day, you look after my two that day.
So what made you? Because that's quite like it's quite new homeschooling to me. Since listen, I woke up 3 years ago with COVID.
Mhm.
That's the thing that woke me up. So what made you want to homeschool from such a young age and not send them to school? What?
Yep. Well, Laura, I just want to say I prefer the term home education, not homeschool. I think that's what they use in the US, right? Because what we definitely don't do is we don't do school.
Ah,
And
okay.
what works at home isn't.
How did you get social services off your back? Kent educate or not Kent, home education. How did you get them off your back?
I'm not required to tell them. They have no
Exactly.
right,
That's
they
what
have no
I've been
right to know.
doing.
Yeah, no, well, what happened was, my son had an accident. My wife took him to hospital. It's when he was 9 or something, for treatment. And they asked what school does he go to? And my wife said, well, he's home educated. We don't hide it. And then they told the local authority, the Education Welfare Office, who then contacted us. They wrote to me and they said, we understand your son is being home educated. We'd like to come to your home and visit you and see him and see you. And I said, no, you're all right. No, you're okay. And then what I did was I wrote them what's called a philosophy of education,
Mm,
which is why we decided to home educate, and then what activities my son engages in that are age appropriate, that cover social, emotional, literacy, numeracy, and I suppose I put in spirituality because I'm the kind of Muslim that goes to Quaker meetings, so I included that, right? And then I sent them that. And then every year they'd ask me, well, we'd like to come and see your child and see you. And I said, no, no, thank you. You're all right. Send them a philosophy of education. And then one year they said, we want you to come into the office with your son. And I said, why? And they said, well, the director of social services wants all home educated children to be met, to be seen. I said, fair enough. Do you have any evidence that my children are at risk of harm in any way whatsoever? They said no. And I said, well, we're not coming to see you. I said, it's my job to protect my children from the intrusions of strangers. So unless you have any welfare concerns for my children, I'll just send you a philosophy of education. And that's what I did. And then I was always
fantastic.
late in replying. And it never
Fantastic.
communicated by phone or email. It was always by letter. And then it got to an age, they stopped contacting me because, well, he's 16. And they never knew about my daughter, never told them. And I've
Did
told
you
my managers,
register?
hmm?
Did you register your
You
children
don't
birth
have to register them.
certificates?
I think it's the 1996 Education Act, Section 7. It's the parents' duty to educate children either by regular attendance at school or otherwise. So I can either delegate that service to the school and say, okay, I want my child to go to your school, and the school will say, okay, well, here's the agreement, this much attendance, these times, these dates, and this is what we'll teach him. Okay, great, off you go. Or otherwise. And I did otherwise. And the law in England and Wales is really, really great for home education. I'm not required to keep to any curriculum. I'm not required to have a timetable. I'm not required to have any set subjects. All I got to do is give them an education that's efficient, that's suitable for their age and aptitude and ability, that allows them to gives them what they need to become fully functioning members of the community in which they're growing up in, which I
Mm,
suppose is this middle class demographic, right?
mm.
Muslim dad, Christian mum,
Oh, excellent.
without foreclosing any other
Yeah,
options. So
yeah,
if they wanted to go, it works for, say, Romani children,
yeah.
that they should get what they need so they can grow up to become fully functioning members of the Romani community. And should they wish to leave and live another lifestyle, they have what it takes to go and do that. That's
That's
what's
pretty
required.
good. That is really good. But did you register your children's birth certificates? Like, did you register them into the system like everybody else did?
I did. I did because
Yeah,
a lot of this stuff I don't know. I don't fully understand. I'm
yeah.
new to it.
That,
Legal fictions, all that business. I'm still learning about it.
don't worry.
It
Don't stress yourself with that at the moment. But
fascinates me.
that's really, really interesting, actually. That I hope people are sort of taking notes and
Oh,
for anyone that's worried about home education.
yeah. I mean, education otherwise is a great website. Edyourself.org, a great website for information. And there go connect with other home educators in your area. That's a really, really, really useful resource. And for children with young parents, the parents need the support of the other home educators. The children
Mm.
are fine. It's the parents that need the support. And then later on, as the children get older, well, the children just get to play with.
It's hard. It's hard for because we've got parents have got this idea that you have a child, and when they get to 3.5, you start fobbing them off in nursery, preschool, and then nursery, and then oh, I can't wait for when they go to full-time school so I can. I mean, look, this is, this is some of the areas that you're around. Parents don't even get out of their pajamas. They go to school in their night. I've seen this in their nightgowns and slippers. I've actually seen this. And they drop their kids off, and I'm mortified. And they go back home in their pajamas and nightgowns and slippers. And
There
that's their
is,
life.
yeah, there is a phenomenon, a term within social work called normative abuse, which is where we take on practices that are abusive but have become normalized. So we don't see the harm that they do. So, for example, formula milk. We
Yeah.
were told that that was at least as good as breast milk. So people took on that, and it's not. It just isn't. Just isn't.
No.
Just isn't. Just isn't. But it's taken time. Meanwhile, for I don't know how many years, right? So I consider putting children in nursery, giving children away before the age of 7 to non-familial strangers. I consider that normative abuse. We are the only mammals that do that. The attachment phase in human beings is 0 to 7, about 7, and it ends, right? Chimpanzees do not. So you're an infant for 7 years in terms of attachment science.
Mm.
Chimpanzees do not give away their attachment, their infants within the attachment phase to some other non-familial group. They don't do that. You hold on to your own during attachment, and at the end of attachment, children naturally begin to move away. Their immune system has matured, their brain has developed to a certain level, they're able to generate their own antibodies, the adult teeth start coming in, they lose the ability to suckle on the mother's breast. They're
Mm.
ready to move away. So you got to at least hold on to them till they're 7. So I know about that. So we co-slept. My wife breastfed. I didn't either, for 2.25 years each.
You didn't chest feed.
I
What's it called
definitely
now?
did not.
Chest feed.
I said to my wife at 3 o'clock in the morning, if I would, I could, and then I turned over to go to sleep. One of the unsung benefits of breastfeeding. I can
I
go
love
to
it.
sleep. Nothing for me to do. Wait, feed your
Oh,
baby. I'm off to sleep.
how long does she do it for?
2.25 years.
That's fantastic.
Do you know, Laura, I wanted her to do it for longer, but apparently it's not down to me.
I love it.
It's
Yeah.
interesting. So,
So,
other forms of
yeah,
normative things that I consider normative abuse that we've done throughout society, like burning of witches at the stake,
I know, right?
book binding, right?
Mm.
These school, nursery, normative abuse, even because it impairs development.
It does. And when my son went to, because you get those 15 hours a week, people must be familiar with this now. When your children turn, I think 3.5, they're allowed 15 hours a week free, or is it 4? I can't remember anyway. So I had the opportunity to. You do it. You just when you're indoctrinated, you do it. You think that's what you have to do. So I put my son in this nursery, and I ended up having a blowout with the nursery because one of the teachers there kept kissing my son on the lips. She was always, yeah, and I just went absolutely ape. And she done it in front of me. She saw me in a supermarket, picked him up, kissed him smack bang on the lips, and I wanted to knock her out. So I put a complaint in, but they protect their own. Oh, she doesn't mean it. Yeah. And it was just like, no, not having this. But did you, by any chance, is another one for you? Do you know who, I think his name is Aaron Russo? Did you ever watch his documentary? So, I can't remember the name of the documentary, but again, it's one of those you have to go to like Odyssey or Rumble, uncensored. And he has a brilliant documentary that you probably find interesting. And if you type Aaron Russo, he's the director of 2 films. I think one was it Coming to America, or was it I think it was Coming to America. I can't remember. And the other one was a Betty Midler film. I think it was The Rose. They're the 2 films he's ever made. And then he woke up to what was really going on to do with taxes and everything. And he spoke about the women's liberation. And it was the Rothschilds that funded Women's Lib because they realised, and it's all in this documentary, and he tells you it's brilliant. They realised that if they, at the moment, that at that time, they couldn't tax both male and female. So they promoted Women's Lib so that women could go to work. And then what they found was that they could tax both the female and the male, the husband and wife. So that's more money for them coming in, and they could have government raised children. So they would take the children away from the families from very, very young, because all these women want to go to work, and Women's Lib and everything. So in one sense, there was this appearance of women being able to get rights. But what that ended up bringing was the beginning of the destruction of the family home. And so we've got this massive history of Women's Lib without realising they've taken your children away and indoctrinate them, and you've got government-raised children.
Yeah, and there's something else about that, Laura, which is it lowered costs for business. So you had, so women entered the marketplace and competed with men for jobs. So there was a greater pool of labor for business to draw on. So then, businesses could say, okay, well, we don't have to pay you so much. We can employ her. So it lowered the earnings of labor. And now what you've got is this absurd situation where parents, mothers, give their infants to non-familial women, to other women, so that they can go to work. So children get brought up generally by women who are not their mothers.
Yep, it's
right?
devastating.
It's completely devastating. There was a study. This is in the Sydney Morning Herald, an article by Stephen Biddulph. If people want to look it up and do a search for it, 3 economists did this study. This is one of the reasons why I decided to home educate, because I'm not going to disrupt the attachment. I'm going to hold on to at least till there's 7. 3 economists compared what was happening in Quebec with what was happening in the rest of Canada. No, it's Ontario, I think. That's the state, right? Yeah. Ontario took on this in early 2000 or something. The government invested a lot of money in really great high quality nursery care. Really, really great high quality nursery care. They raised the quality of the staff, the training for staff, invested in it. They gave subsidies to many families, so even middle class parents, it became affordable and everything. So what happened? There was this incredible boom in children attending nursery. And what these 3 economists did is they looked at the outcomes of those children that went to nursery and compared it with the outcomes for children in other states, other provinces in Canada that didn't go to nursery. So it's a very large comparative study. And what they found was the results of the children that went to nursery was shocking. Absolutely shocking. Familial care got replaced by institutional care. So instead of grandmothers and mothers and fathers and uncles and aunts looking, cousins or whatever, right? Families looking after their own, it was paid state functionaries.
Yes.
So the much higher rates of promiscuity, lower rates of educational attainment, higher rates of all sorts of dysfunction like drug use, violence, everything. And not just a little bit, but much higher, significantly higher. And I was like, oh my God, this is shocking. But the problem with nursery provision and also with school provision, it is this massive self-serving industry.
Yep, absolutely. I've got some comments. Just want to put a quick note out there for people that are listening, and especially a lot of parents like myself. Okay, we've all done it. We didn't know. We've been entered into a system which has manipulated us into believing that that's how it's done. That's what you do, and you don't have a choice. And I'm noticing some of the comments, some of the people here are, suffering. We've all suffered when we don't know. So now, instead of beating yourself up about it, this has to be the time when we make the change going forward. And remember, today in my previous life, I said, don't point the finger. You be the change. Don't blame anyone else. It's down to us to make that change. So let's learn from this. We've all made these mistakes. Let's learn from this and try and teach our kids going forward to try and restore some kind of family unit.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one of the things to say about school, because it is challenging. Society is not set up for us to look after our own. It just isn't. So we have to create those structures ourselves. And then sometimes, parents will say to me, well, we're going to work with the school, try and work with the school. Forget it. Losing
No,
battle. It's like if I stand under the shower and I keep using lots and lots of towels to keep drying myself. It's a losing game. No matter how
it's
many
very
towels
good.
I use, I'm going to keep getting wet because the school, people do not know why schools were set up. Teachers do not know. If you are a parent and you got friends who are teachers, or you speak to your kids' teachers, ask them, where were the first schools? Why were they set up? They won't know because teachers aren't taught it. I had to dig it out. It was set up by the Prussian royal family in response to a philosopher called Gottlieb Fichte. Napoleon defeated the Prussians,
Mm.
and the Prussians, the only way they had of getting wealth was through imperial conquest because they had no resources. And Fichte, he argued that if we remove the children from their parents at a young enough age, engage them in meaningless activities that they're instructed to do by state-appointed agents, they will learn obedience, conformity, and compliance. I could put it the other way, right? They'll learn cock. Compliance, obedience, and conformity.
Yeah, it's true.
Do listen, do as you're told without dissent, and be
Mm.
like everybody else.
Do you know what year that was, by any chance?
It was sometime in the early 19th century, so 18 something. 1806 was when Napoleon defeated the Prussian army. Where I got this from is from the work of really, really great educator. He's now passed away, John Taylor Gatto, Gatto, Gatto. He wrote this. He won New York City Teacher of the Year 3 times. One of his speeches was the 7-lesson school teacher. And I read that and I was like, oh my God, I cannot fault these arguments. He was a passionate advocate for home education and alternative forms of education versus factory schooling, which is what our
Yeah,
mainstream schools are, just factory schools, churning them
factory.
out,
Yeah,
turning them out. Now, how do I test for obedience, Laura? You're at school, right?
yeah.
How do I make sure that you're doing something out of obedience, out of pure obedience, and not because it has relevance for you?
Well, they don't argue back whether it's right or wrong.
Yeah, but
They
that's not the test.
go
See,
on.
let's say you're a devotee of a particular faith, right? And I say to you, Laura, I'd like you to go and pray now. Well, you're likely to go and pray.
Mm.
Are you doing it because you're following an instruction, or because it has relevance for you?
Because it's got relevance for me.
Yeah. So I have to have you engage in activities that have no relevance for you. They have no meaning for you. So I want you to memorize the kings and queens of England. Why? That
Mm.
has no relevance to my life. Why not teach me about common law and
Yeah.
our lawful system? Well, that might have
Mm.
relevance for you. Why not teach me how to manage a bank account or a budget, or change a bicycle tire or a car tire? That might
Mm.
have relevance for you. No, you need to memorize 1066. Yeah, but I don't want to. It's got no relevance to me.
Mm.
Do as you're told. So you have to engage children and drill them and drill them and drill them and drill them, compel them by shame, through
Yeah.
punishment, reward, shaming you against the ones that do really, really well. Look at this kid. They did as they were told and they get stars. What's wrong with you?
Mm.
The kids
Yeah,
that do best in school are the ones that rebel.
it's
The mis
true.
the miscreants, they emerge relatively unscathed with their souls intact, but it's a losing battle. You'll still be damp, like standing under the shower with all the towels.
I
So
remember
it
having this discussion with maths. I could not understand why I needed to learn about blooming algebra or, uh, you know, the whatever. I said, why can't I just do like money management, like money percentages, things that I use every day? Oh no, but you have to learn this, that, and the other. I said, well, I'm not
Right,
going into building, so I'm not doing angles and triangles. I said, I'm not going into finance, so I don't. Not if I know, so I'm not going to become a scientist. So do I need Pythagoras, whatever, theory of, and I said trigonometry, and I was like, oh, it's just impossible.
yeah,
So I
or
failed 4 times.
yes, good for you. And then, when you and then later on in life, because this happened with me, 'cause I enjoyed maths, I did well in maths and stuff, but later on in life, I need to know compound interest. I couldn't remember it for toffee, so I looked it up.
Yeah,
I looked it up in a maths book. It now had relevance for me.
yeah,
Now I had meaning, so I look it up, and I can
yeah.
work out volume and area and all of that, when I'm building something in the garden or whatever, because it has relevance for me. So we can do that. My son, when he was 12, he one day he said to us, "I want to learn Mandarin." Okay, okay, why? Pakistani dad, Scottish mum. We don't mind, but why? He said, "Well, China's going to be a growing economic power, and more people speak Mandarin than any other language in the world. I think it'd be useful."
It's fantastic.
Oh, okay. So we found him a Mandarin tutor through a local home ed group. He went for 4 or 5 years, absolutely loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Didn't have to do any exams. For him, it was just fun. It was intrinsic. He wanted to. And did really, really well. And then he goes into college against my advice and he can't do Mandarin anymore. But he got it in. And actually, when he went to college, he soon learned it's boring because I don't
Yeah,
get to tailor make my educational syllabus for me. And then he
yeah.
chose to do economics and he said they don't understand anything about money. They don't know
It's
how it
amazing,
works.
isn't it? But talking about money,
Talking about money.
talking about that, because you seem to be into quite a few things, aren't you? So you are obviously known as crypto rich. So now I know nothing about crypto. I have no investment in crypto. And by the way, guys, I'm not pushing crypto here, but we're just going to touch
Would you
on
would you
money.
encourage people to get gold and silver?
Well, yeah, actually, I would, yeah,
Why?
because it's a tangible commodity that will, in one way or another, either rise or sort of be stable in value. No, no.
It's very good,
All
Laura.
right.
We could have a whole conversation, right? So gold and silver are money.
Okay.
All forms of wealth. All forms of wealth. Every single currency in the world, the dollar, the euro, the yen, silver, Bitcoin, everything is measured against gold. Everything. Gold is the
Right.
ultimate form of money.
Okay.
Now they're not upfront about it because then they get to keep the gold for themselves and they want us to believe the fraud that is the pound and the dollar and the euro or whatever, right? And they think that CBDC, but gold is money. Now
Hmm.
what are the characteristics of money?
It's the exchange. It's what people use to buy things.
Yeah, it's a value transfer. It's an
Yeah.
exchange, right? You can exchange value with it. It represents value. Like 10 man hours or woman hours, right? Um, of labor or whatever, 10 hours of labor and energy as represented by this token, by this piece of gold sovereign, for example, right? And then I can use it to buy something off you. I'm a cobbler. You have potatoes. You don't want any more shoes. You've had enough shoes, right? But I'll
Yeah.
give you this sovereign for a sack of potatoes, and then you can take that sovereign and go and exchange it for some fish
Yeah.
because you've got plenty of potatoes, and now you can make fish and chips. And the fishmonger can come to me and say, "Look, here's a sovereign. I need because I need some shoes." So you got that circulating, that exchange of value, right? But you can't use anything to exchange value. It has to be durable. We couldn't use leaves because they would
Right.
decay,
Yep.
right? And actually, in one state in the US, they did use tobacco leaves and they did decay, right? But the other problem, say so it's got to be there's got to be enough agreement. I can't give you like a stone that I got off the beach here. Like,
Yep.
Rich, I'm not taking this. The fishmonger won't take
Mm.
this. So there has to be agreement, right?
Yep.
And then agreement, token of value, durable,
Mm.
because you don't want to give something that's going to decay. Portable. I want a sack of potatoes. Here's a tree trunk.
Yeah. Yeah.
What am I
Just
going to do with a bloody tree trunk, right? And the tree's still in the ground. So it's got to be portable,
yeah.
and then it's got to be divisible. So I've got to be able to divide it. So I only want half a sack of potatoes. Okay, well,
Mm.
give me half a sovereign. It's also got to be fungible. And what that means is that one ounce of gold is exactly the same as another ounce of gold.
Mm.
That's
Right.
fungibility. A tree trunk, this is a sycamore tree trunk, is not the same as an oak tree
No.
trunk, right? So it's got to be fungible. So I hope I can remember these. I'm doing off the top of my head. Fungibility, portability, durability, divisibility, exchange of value, agreement, and scarcity. So we don't use tin as money anymore because it's worthless. The greater the supply of something, the less value it has,
Mm.
which is why silver has less value than gold, because silver is more common than gold.
Mm.
Silver has all those qualities: divisibility, portability, fungibility, scarcity, agreement. So gold and silver have all those characteristics. And the pound in your pocket almost does.
Just a
It
color.
it doesn't have scarcity because
Right.
they print it away. They're printing out of existence. Eat out to help out. We'll press a button. Here's more pounds. Oh, we want to go and support the killing of people in Ukraine and Gaza. Oh, we'll print some money, buy some more weaponry. So it isn't, you said beginning at the cost of things are going up. No, the cost of things aren't going up. The purchasing power of government issued currency, like the pound, the dollar, the euro, is going down. I remember when we first came to this country, 5 of us, a weekly shop, a big trolley full of food, £5,
Wow. How long ago was this?
1970. And despite my
Wow.
features, right? £5. And how much is it now? You
Oh,
know,
don't even go there. I couldn't even afford to do a trolley full. Just
yeah,
wouldn't happen. I'd
yeah.
get like a quarter of a trolley, and that's it. That's in, Aldi.
I mean, I don't drink Coke, so I don't know how much a Coke is nowadays, right? A can
No,
of Coke,
nor do
right?
I.
But it's like I need more and more pennies to buy the can of Coke. The can of
Mm.
Coke is the same. Coke is the same. It's terrible, right? But the purchasing power of the pennies has reduced. So I need more and more because they keep increasing the supply. You increase the supply of something, it loses value.
Mm.
So you can't increase the supply of gold. You can't accelerate it because you have to work to get it out of the ground. You can't increase the supply of silver because it takes work. You don't just push a button and print more silver or print more gold.
Mm.
Yeah. All of those characteristics
Make it valuable.
make it valuable, desirable. It's it's money. Bitcoin has all those characteristics.
How?
Well, the only
When
one that,
Bitcoin is digital.
yeah. Well, the only thing you can't hold it, but
Yeah.
digital goods, digital products have value.
Like what?
Email, the application you're using to record this video, the
Yeah.
browser, Firefox browser, Brave browser, Dissenter browser. It has value. It has utility. Some digital goods people pay for, like a VPN.
Mm.
Microsoft Word.
Mm.
It has value. Just because you can't hold it physically,
Doesn't mean it's got no value.
yeah, because who decides it's got value are people, which is people doing the market, which is really people just exchanging value with each other. You know,
Mm.
in Britain, I don't think people get the value of gold.
No.
Well, too bad. Too bad for you, Laura.
Mm.
People in Africa get it. People in South America get it. People in Asia get it. Right?
Yep.
People in Germany get it. The market is global,
Yep.
right? Um, so digital goods do have value. You just can't hold on to them. But then we live in a digital world, like it or not. I can't send you gold. I can
No.
send you a message on WhatsApp or Telegram or an email. I can turn up here and we can talk through digital applications. I can send you Bitcoin. But here's something else about Bitcoin.
Go on.
There will never, ever be any more than 21 million. Never, ever, ever. We will always keep, as long as there's gold in the ground or in the sea or ways of extracting it, the gold supply will always keep increasing, little by little by little by little. Same with silver. So that there are mines in South Africa that are now 2 miles deep to extract like an ounce of gold from tons of rock, because gold has that value. Bitcoin, once there are 21 million produced, that's it.
How many's produced? Do you know how many's been produced at the moment?
Right now, I think it's about 16 to 17 million. And what happens is when it gets harder and harder to produce them. So a little bit like when the Europeans went over to North America, they found big nuggets of copper on the
Mm.
ground, like a sofa-sized nugget of copper. The Native Americans had no use for it, so the Europeans snaffled it up for their electrics. Okay, so all the easy copper is gone. Now we've got to dig a meter. Takes more work, more energy. Now we've got to dig 3 meters. Now we've got to dig
Mm.
100 meters.
Mm.
So over time, it takes more energy to produce a diminishing supply, but the
Yep.
demand is still growing, the utility is growing, so the value grows,
Mm.
and they keep printing the fiat currency. So with Bitcoin, Bitcoin's a way of preserving value, just like gold and
Right.
silver. And Bitcoin, like I said, I can send it across to you in an instant. It takes about 30 minutes. The other thing about Bitcoin is that it's decentralized, it's peer-to-peer. It's not issued by a government or a central bank.
Mm.
It's our money. It's people's money.
So how does that work? I mean, all right, how do you know which Bitcoin is the right
Okay.
Bitcoin?
Okay, so far I've spoken about Bitcoin specifically as Bitcoin,
Right.
right? There are thousands and
Yeah.
thousands of cryptocurrencies, of these digital forms of payment, right? Many, many different types. Some of them are scams, some of them are shams, some of them are failed projects, some of them are fabulous, some of them are in between. There's many, many. Bitcoin, I would you invite you to consider as digital gold. It is
Right.
the mothership of all cryptos. It's the most conservative one. Buy a little, no more than you can afford to lose, learn a little bit about it, come back in 8 years, tell me how you did. Because the governments are going to keep printing money. They're going to keep printing money. And Bitcoin is our way out of CBDCs, because it can't be censored or controlled by the way that it's designed by any single entity. Okay, so now you're generically cryptocurrency. It's like let me see. We talked about cars.
Yeah.
You can say, well, how do I know which car to buy? We'll do some research.
Mm. Mm.
I think the best-selling car, Toyota Corolla or something like that, or the
Really?
Volkswagen Beetle. I think so, possibly, right? Volkswagen Beetle is a really great car. Very simple design, very easy to maintain, but it's not as flash or as fast as a Lambo, nor is it as energy efficient as, say, a Prius.
Mm.
Okay, so do a bit of research and choose. Does that answer your question?
It does, but how would you know which ones are the scamming ones?
Well, people got to be responsible
Mm.
and do their own research and look into it. I
Is
think
is it a form of gambling, or do you just buy it and keep it, or do you have to reinvest it? What do you kind of
no,
have to do?
um, if I draw an analogy with email,
Mm.
you have a public email address, and I send you an email, and it stays in your email account,
Yep.
and you have a private key or a password that lets you into your email account. You give away your public address, and people can send you emails, and you can keep the emails. You can send emails to yourself and keep them, and that email account is available forever, pretty much, right?
Yep.
As long as
Yep.
that service still exists. So then what you keep your Bitcoin in, and I'm talking specifically about Bitcoin, is what is a Bitcoin account known as a wallet.
Mm.
And you have a public address, which is a series of characters and numbers. It's not easy to read out or memorize.
Mm.
And then you have a password or a private key, which you don't
Mm.
tell anybody. You don't post it on the internet. You keep a hold of it, and you keep your Bitcoin in that account. If you lose the password to your email, forget it. Email gone. Same deal with this. You lose the password, forget it.
Okay.
Right now, um, Bitcoin was launched in 2009,
Mm.
and you can get hundreds for a penny, for a cent, a US cent. And I first knew about Bitcoin in 2012 when it was $5. I should have bought some
Mm.
then, I didn't. There wasn't much information about. And right now, today, I looked, it's about $37,000. It's not gambling,
What, for one Bitcoin?
one Bitcoin, but you don't have to buy a whole one. You can buy a portion.
Oh yeah, I'll just get half.
Yeah, half or a quarter or whatever, right? I mean, the best way of, if you decide to, if people, do their own research, get into it, right? The best way of buying it is buying a small amount on a regular period, a bit every week, every week, every week, every week. And the governments are going to keep printing money, and they're going to drive us towards CBDCs, their centralized digital currencies, so they can track all our movements and everything, and then track all our purchases and punish us unless we eat crickets.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is decentralized. There's no central points of control. Do you know about BitTorrent, the
No.
file sharing, Pirate
Right.
Bay? Yeah.
No.
Okay. So BitTorrent has cost Hollywood and Lollywood and Bollywood and Chinese film industry hundreds and hundreds, possibly billions of dollars in copyright fees, because people can just share files, music, films, everything
Oh,
across
right.
it, right?
Yes. Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's fully decentralized. So the governments have not been able to close it down because there's no, it's like playing whack-a-mole. There's just
Yeah.
too many keep popping up. Bitcoin is like that. It's built
Right.
on the same protocol, the same sort of code. They can't shut it
So,
down.
what someone's saying about SegWit? What's SegWit?
So- okay, so I'm going to keep this really, really, really simple.
Simple.
Yeah.
Please
So,
do.
and I'm going to draw an analogy with motor cars, with
Right.
cars, right? I know how to drive a car. I have a second-hand Prius, which is a hybrid. Sometimes it runs on battery, sometimes it runs on petrol.
Right.
I don't know how the car works. I know an EV, a fully electric vehicle, runs differently. A
Yep.
Formula One car runs differently. They all have different characteristics. Some are faster, some are more fuel efficient. So Segwit is a particular way. It's a little bit too technical for this audience, I think, right? It's just a way of checking that Bitcoin transactions can't be defrauded.
Right.
That's what it is. It's a particular way of doing that. Look, I could send you a PDF, right? Or actually, what people could do is, they could copy this video and post it all over the place, and
Yeah.
nobody
Yep.
would, and it will be as good as the original because of the quality of digital copies.
Right.
The way that digital Bitcoin is designed is you can't make a copy of it. Just
Right. Okay.
and SegWit is one way of ensuring that there aren't any copies. The copies have no validity. Okay.
So you've been doing this for quite some time then?
Well, I started my YouTube channel in April 2017. I chose the name Crypto Rich because people want to get rich with crypto,
Oh, excellent.
right? That's why.
Can
They
you
don't.
get, obviously you can get rich with
People
crypto.
can be. I've lost money and I've made money, but overall, I've done well because I've done my own research. I didn't put in any more than I can afford to lose, and I have looked into projects. And okay, it's a patience, takes patience, but it does with any investing. But the thing about the promise of cryptocurrencies is that it sets us free from the Great Reset,
I
from
was just going to say to you,
CBDCs.
because I'm looking at now the Great Reset and Net Zero, and how the GR is falling.
The Great Reset is failing. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So
Oh, failing. Yeah.
yeah, you and I talked about a whole heap. We suggested a whole heap of topics we
Yeah.
could go through, right? So one of the ways that it's failing is because of the emergence of cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, and without getting too complicated and too into it, right? Like cash is important. Cash is really, really important. We got to use cash, and a time will come perhaps where we're using gold and silver. Silver for the
Mm,
small transactions, gold to buy and sell houses. It's peer to
mm,
peer, censorship resistant, can't be controlled. It's between you and me. We make the agreement.
mm.
Communication between us, right? Same deal with Bitcoin, same deal with cash. Keeps us free. Our economic activity, our economic communications. There are cryptocurrencies that are completely, completely private. And you can't Bitcoin, you can track, you can see the trace and everything of it went from this wallet to that wallet to that wallet and this much and this much. There are cryptocurrencies like Pirate Chain, completely private. Nobody will know. If you and I met up, Laura, and I gave you £20, or you gave me £50,
Mm. Yeah.
nobody would know. When we do it in a room somewhere or whatever, nobody knows about that.
Yeah.
Privacy cryptocurrencies offer that security and freedom. So it's our way out. So one of
Interesting.
the reasons is, and I think Christine Lagarde, is it Lagarde or one of the other ones, Ursula von der Leyen, one of them has said that Bitcoin, they want to shut down Bitcoin because it's the exit route to CBDCs,
Mm.
because it's peer-to-peer, censorship resistant. They,
Interesting.
they want to get their cut. They want to get their cut. If you and I do a deal, why on earth should the bank get a cut or the government get a cut? All
I
they're
know.
going to do is use that money to go and kill people and enslave us in 15-minute cities and all of that, right? But the Great Reset is failing, I think, for a whole variety of reasons, some of which will be familiar to your audience. And when this goes out on my channel to my audience, that people will know about. One is the injections. I never don't
Mm.
call vaccines. The injections didn't work as they intended. People woke up because they
Yeah.
hurt people, too many people too quickly. So, there were people like myself who didn't have the injections,
Yep.
spoke up about it, and then, a cousin of mine had an injection, got hurt. Okay, not having a second one.
Mm. Mm.
Right? A friend had the second one, got hurt, not having that. And then the friend's partners for the friend's family saw what happened to the friend or to the cousin or whatever. So
Mm.
they all became anti-vaxxers,
Mm.
tinfoil hat wearer, white supremacists like me.
Yeah.
Right? We're all white supremacists now, right? I just
Well,
happen to
I've got quite a few. I've got a list to take. I tell you what, if this last 3 years was me taking a college or a university degree, I'll tell you, I've ended up with a whole arm of names that I can add before my name.
Yep. So
Anti-Semitic and homophobic, and I mean the list goes on.
transphobic, everything. That's right.
Transphobic, yeah, everything.
I am critical of BLM and
Oh
their racist
yes,
notion that white people are racist just because they're white.
yeah,
No, no, no,
it's not
no,
true.
no, no, because that's the same as saying, oh, this person's got this skin color, therefore they're like this. No,
Yeah,
that's not what
yeah,
Martin Luther King stood for, right?
no, no.
Nonsense,
It's
nonsense, nonsense.
it's true.
You're gonna tell me my wife is racist because she's white? No,
Yeah.
my brother is a Muslim scholar, uh, and he's actually married to a Jewish woman. You can tell me she's Jewish because she's white? No. What am I
I
anti?
love the I love the mix in your family. I think it's amazing.
Well, we're all human beings. We're all human
I
beings.
love that. That's amazing. So you're you're a Muslim, you married a Scottish Christian, and your brother's also a Muslim, and he married a Jew.
Yeah, and I go
How
to
good is
Quaker meet
that?
I go to Quaker meetings where I sit in
Wow,
silence and listen to the spirit. Anyway,
that's
because I'm up for a
brilliant.
world where human beings honor human beings. I have that in my family. I want that for everybody, where we honor each other and we find our own paths and where we
Yeah.
honor each other on those paths. But anyway, so more and more people are waking up, and then I
Mm.
think people are becoming less and less trusting of the media. There's more and
Hmm.
more of their lies being exposed, like the Russiagate lie. Um, the European Union is in really, really bad shape. I am
Mm.
so proud that in 2016 I voted Brexit because, of course, I'm this xenophobic white supremacist, right?
Yeah.
Right wing, Farage loving white. I actually voted Brexit out of listening to George Galloway and Tony Benn, right? And that
Wow.
it was a left wing position to oppose the
Yeah.
European Union, right? But the European Union is failing.
Yeah.
Um, Germany's deindustrializing. German they can't manufacture like they used to because they don't have access to cheap Russian energy anymore. So how they're going to compete? And Germany is the main powerhouse. It's the main source of income for all of the European Union. And then recently there was a decision this week gone by a German court that said that the money that had been German euros that had been earmarked for COVID could not be used to promote the climate agenda.
Yeah.
So that's good. So that's failing there.
Mm.
And France is in such a mess. France is in such a mess. So there are 33 countries that don't have their own currency, 33 third world nations. 19, I mean, there's more, right? But I'm talking about the ones to do with Europe. 19 of them are in Europe, the Euro nation, the Eurozone, and 14 of them are in Africa, former French colonies that don't have their own currency. They use the colonial franc. And France
Mm.
has used the colonial franc to impoverish these nations. In particular, it's been in the news recently, is Niger. So France
Mm.
was buying uranium from Niger for about $2 a kilo. And then using that cheap uranium to manufacture energy, which they're selling to their domestic population at market rates, and then selling it at an even higher cost to Netherlands and Britain and Germany and other countries, and raking in lots of money. So
Yep.
Niger had a coup, and they said, no, no cheap uranium for you. You want uranium from us? Well, the market price is $160 per kilo. Get this, they're getting it for under $2 a kilo. And the market rate is $160 a kilo. And the Niger government, you want our uranium? $200 a kilo.
Wow.
So France is losing that
Mm.
revenue income, and other former French colonies are noticing. And they can't go to war with Niger because they've bled themselves dry in this tragic escapade, this tragedy with Ukraine. They don't have it's just horrific what's happening in Ukraine. But the African nations are noticing, and they're saying, hey, listen, we're making nice with Russia and China. They're not exploiting us like you Europeans have done. Russia and
Yep.
China don't have the history, the legacy of imperial conquest that has shaped Europe, including Britain.
Mm.
So Europe is fading. The Federal Reserve, I think, and I follow a guy called Tom Luongo, Gold, Goats and Guns. TomLuongo.me, I really recommend. Great stuff. And also the Duran on Odyssey. Great, great channel, great analysis. The Federal Reserve is in a war with the WEF. And it's a war that's happening in the money markets. And it's not being reported about in the media, not represented. What the Federal Reserve is doing, Jay Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve, has said, we're not doing this climate change agenda. We're not going to do it. It's not my job. My job is to keep inflation low and to protect the dollar. Now, the Federal Reserve is not a national bank. It's a private bank. It's owned by
Mm-hmm.
Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan and a few others. And those banks are like, no CBDCs. You're cutting us out of our business. CBDCs will
Interesting.
destroy commercial banking. You think those gangsters are going to give up? The Goldman Sachs gangsters are going to give up to the WEF gangsters? No, 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 no. This is our turf. You're not
Yep.
muscling in on our business model. So Jerome Powell has for a couple of years been slowly raising interest rates. Now, if anybody's watching and is still like pro Remain and pro EU, get this. The European Union has been so healthy financially, in such good shape, that from 2014 to 2022, they had zero interest rates or negative interest rates on their bonds. Negative interest rates make no sense. It's upside down money. Laura, I will lend you $1 billion. You only need to pay me back 990 million.
Wow. Yeah.
What? How does a bank
Mm.
function? How can you have a functioning banking system with that? And if you
Yeah.
can't get the big figures right, anybody watching, I'll lend you £100 and you only need to pay me back 95. What?
Yeah.
I'll lend you 100 Bitcoin. You only pay me back 9. I'm kidding, by the way, right? But just as
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
illustration, right? How can a bank function that way? It destroys banking. It destroys the way that currency moves through the system. And that's because the EU is in such a terrible financial state. So now you've got high interest rates in the United States. You've got money, currency in the Europe, and
Mm.
you are a large fund, a large investor, a pension fund. You can get higher interest rates here than there. Where are you going to move your money to?
Yeah, you'll move it with a higher interest rate.
You're going to move it where the higher interest rates are. And what's
Mm.
going to happen to interest rates here? They're going to have to go up higher in order to fund, in
Mm.
order to compete, which then means that these mega billionaires, what they were doing was borrowing money at zero or negative interest rates.
Mm.
You know, you lend me £1,000, I only have to pay you back 950 or 900. Well, I don't care how I invest that £1,000.
Mm.
I don't have to produce a return. I can invest it in some climate change boondoggle that'll
Mm.
make no money, but will enslave the population.
Yeah.
That can't do that anymore. No country is bigger than the market. So money is draining out of the European Union into the United States. The euro will keep going down, keep going down, keep going down. Add to the problems with Germany and what the Ukraine
Yep.
war has done, and France, and then the immigration, the open borders. So look, I am an immigrant to this nation.
Mm.
And I come from this anti-racist, I joined the anti-apartheid movement, but you cannot have open borders. You cannot have open
Mm.
borders. Open borders didn't work for the Native Americans. It didn't work for India or Africa. It didn't work for the Tasmanian people, the Tasmanian Aborigines, because when the British arrived, they hunted them like animals.
Mm.
Open
Mm.
borders destroy culture and religion and language and faith and society. And
Yep.
people want to come in, fine. If they're invited, if they can offer something useful,
Mm.
like people came from the former colonies in the 50s because they were needed for jobs. There wasn't enough of a
Mm.
workforce. That's one thing, but just to let anybody in, so that's going
Yep.
to create more tension and more resistance. So
Yep.
you've got what's happened in Netherlands with the election of Geert Wilders and his party, and the AfD in Germany, who are gaining more power. And then people are looking at the climate change agenda and like, this is hogwash. You're going to you're going to make me cold. You're going to
Mm.
blame
Mm.
me. And here's the thing about climate change. Isn't it funny how the continent that has no appreciable hydrocarbons is telling the rest of the world how to live and what's good for them? Ah, Europe's civilizing mission. I've heard that tune before because they came to the rest of the world and said, listen, you are savages. We will
Yeah.
tell you how to live your lives while we plunder your resources.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
Europe has no appreciable hydrocarbons, is saying to Burundi and Tanzania and Bangladesh, no development for you because we can't compete. And they'll be like, sod you, we're hanging out with the Russians and the Chinese.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
this is the great.
they're building they've got bricks, haven't they? That's what they're.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
The rest of the world, I mean, Europe is a basket case, and Joe Biden, who likes sniffing little children
I saw that on the
while they're
Richard Bobes. If
suspected,
you
yes.
guys haven't seen that, go and watch that Richard Bobes.
Ah,
I thought it was so funny
so
because you guys didn't mention him, but you showed the clip of what of some guy, and this is what grooming could look like. You played that; it was brilliant.
okay,
Yeah,
because more and more people are waking up, more and more people are reacting to this, more and more people are receptive. That's been my experience as a conspiracy theorist, tinfoil hat wearer, Brexiteer, Trump tide, all that
yeah.
business, white supremacist, racist, xenophobe. People are more receptive because they can see through the lies. And then we have decentralized applications like decentralized money, decentralized virtual private networks, decentralized information platforms like ThreeSpeak, like Odyssey.
Mm.
We can exchange information and share ideas.
Yes,
And
it's brilliant, really.
decentralization always wins over centralization because
So, do you think
centralized
there's going to
power.
be like a split world?
No,
Do you
I
think we're
think
going to
the
sort of?
no, I think what's going to happen is there's going to be more and more conflict, civil conflict,
Mm,
military conflict, more hot wars. There's going to be more protests. There's going to be more financial wars. CBDCs, they're going to try it. It's going to fail.
mm.
More and more resistance. It's going to take a few years, but the Great Reset's going to crumble. More and more awakening. It's just going to
I'm
crumble.
uh, I'm having a question, guys. I'm not seeing all the questions. Right? Have you heard about the Bradbury pound? And if you have, why can't we do this again on a local level?
You can. Absolutely can. Knock yourself out. The thing about the Bradbury pound is the nature of issuance, the problem with issuance. If you gave me, despite all my ethics and my commitment to equality and integrity and everything, right? If you gave me the power to issue currency, oh my God, could I resist the temptation? Just a little bit
Mm,
here, just a little bit here, right?
mm,
Which is how currency came to be as gold receipts. People used gold receipts to exchange value and stuff. And then what the gold dealers did was they kept producing fake receipts because the temptation was too great. So the problem with something like the Bradbury pound is the question of issuance.
right.
You got to create issuance in such a way that it's decentralized and it can't be tampered with, which can be done with cryptocurrencies. So you could create a local cryptocurrency, but then it has to have agreement. I couldn't
Right.
walk into, because I know there've been local exchanges, local exchange currencies before. I couldn't take the Bradbury pound and go and, from my city and go and use it in another city. It's got to be transferable in that way.
Mm, mm.
And that takes time. And the thing is, Bitcoin has that growing acceptance. I saw something the other day. The country of Bhutan is mining Bitcoin. El Salvador recognizes Bitcoin as a currency.
Wow.
So, Bitcoin, gold, and silver.
Time to invest in. I mean,
Well,
do you think we're ever going? I know we're running out of time in it because we're coming
yes.
up to the 2 hour mark. Do you think we're ever going to not use money?
No, I can't see how. In a complex
Right.
society, I can't see how, because we need to have some form of communicating value and energy transfer. That's all it is. It's tokenized energy, whether it's Bitcoin or gold or silver, but the currencies is fraud. They're robbing us of our labor. I spent
Mm,
10 hours to make this pair of shoes that's worth £10.
mm,
And those central bankers have just printed another £10 and
mm.
devalued my labor, my skill, the energy I've invested
So how do we give value back to our labour?
by using forms of money transfer or value transfer that cannot be counterfeited. Gold, silver, Bitcoin. You cannot produce more Bitcoin. You cannot hack the program. You cannot make copies of it. It's so robust and secure. You just
So
can't.
what you're saying is, I need to make sure the time. Obviously, I
Yes.
wasn't very good at maths, okay? So bear with me. But what you're saying is, if we find a commodity that gives more value to our sweat and labor, like gold, silver, or crypto, or whatever, that means we can start working with each other
Yeah.
away from the money system.
Yeah. Outside the currency system. The government issued currency system. Gold, silver, and Bitcoin are money, real money, proper money. And it's independent of the banking system. And then we can exchange. We can do an exchange as we choose to. And there was something else you said earlier. I thought I should respond to that, but I've forgotten. Oh, this is it. Bitcoin isn't gaining value. Gold isn't gaining value, and silver isn't gaining value. I mean, gold and silver, they manipulate it on the markets anyway, which is a whole other conversation. But Bitcoin isn't gaining value. It's not. One Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. 1 ounce of gold is 1 ounce of gold. But it takes more pounds, more dollars to buy the same Bitcoin because that's losing value. They keep printing it.
Okay.
They're
Right.
increasing the supply. So Bitcoin is a way of preserving wealth. Gold is a way of preserving wealth. Silver is a way of preserving wealth, apart from the manipulation that they do with gold and silver, which is a whole other conversation, like I said, right? So you buy, and we haven't even gone into the cycle, the Bitcoin halving. I did a video about that on my channel a few weeks ago, and people can go and check that out, right?
Okay.
bit.ly/crypto-rich-odyssey. You buy, let's say you buy £100 worth of Bitcoin now, and you come back to me, you hold on to it. Chances are, no guarantees in life. In 4 years, 8 years, how much is that little bit of Bitcoin? How much is it going to be worth in pound value if they keep printing the pounds away?
Yeah, it's going to go up.
It's going to go up. The first transaction Bitcoin, somebody bought 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin. That's
Wow.
how much. That's how much they've inflated the money supply.
That's just crazy.
It's completely crazy.
Right. Well, I'm going to nearly
Yes, I got to
2 hours.
finish too.
It's been
I didn't
amazing.
think it would take this long.
No, I mean we could carry on, but we can't. And but I've really enjoyed talking to you. It's always nice to meet new people and talk about different things. And it's very interesting, listening about the crypto and the money and all that. All of it's been really interesting. Um,
Yes. I would
and
invite people to look into it and don't believe the lies that the mainstream media, the bankster-sponsored mainstream media tell you that it's a Ponzi scheme, that it's going to destroy the planet, that it's all by scammers and all of that, right? No, go check it out for yourself. They lied to you about the injections. They're lying to you about climate change. They're lying to you about CBDCs. They're lying to you about net zero. They lied to you about Ukraine. They lied to you about what's going on in Israel, Gaza. They're lying to you about all sorts of things. And you think they're going to tell you the truth about Bitcoin?
no, absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not. Rich, guys, I hope you've enjoyed our chat. I know I have, and this time has gone by really quick. I'm going to put your links, like I said, at the top of this live discussion at the end. So I'll get the links. So if you want to follow and go and have a look at Rich's channel, you can. And yeah, give him a follow. And it's been brilliant. Maybe we can
Laura,
come back
thank you.
again
I
and
really enjoyed it.
talk about bear with me, don't disappear. Much love to everyone. And see you next week. I think I'm having a few days off. All right, speak to
All
you
the
soon,
best.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.